Hey everybody, how we doing today? So welcome to Chumming 101 number 5, OAT Chum balls. Now if you've been watching my Chumming 101 series, especially episode number 4, my last video, where we discussed how to make chum sandballs and how to effectively use them. Basically, chum sandballs are the best to use when you're working deeper water, especially the outside of the reef. Our reef system goes basically to the top of the reef is about 40 foot, then it drops off with a sharp edge down to about 70, flattens off, and then drops off again to about 100 foot. And then you're out to where it starts gradually going down. Now at those depths, using the sandballs are about really the only effective way of getting that chum down to those depths. So it's kind of the only way to go. Now the negative fact to using sandballs is that they create a kind of a choking effect on the reef species, the life that makes up the reef, because that sand will clog up all their systems and so forth. However, when you're doing it on that outside of the reef, that 40 to the 70, 70 to the 100, it's not so much of an issue because at those depths, there's not a lot of organisms. It's not really the living reef. There's coral heads and there's bits and pieces there, deeper corals and such, but it's not so much of an issue. Where it becomes definitely a problem is using sandballs up on the main reef, and it's actually not necessary, and there's an alternative which is actually a more effective chum ball, and that is the OAT chum balls. The difference being, instead of using sand, we use oats. Sand is not edible, it's not attractive. However, on oats are, because they're edible, they absorb the fluids, the oils, the juices from the chum, and it actually is a flavorful meal for the fish. So when you drop a chum ball, it's 100% consumable. It breaks open all these particles, all of it's edible, and that creates a bigger attractant for those fish. So it's way more effective than the sand balls. So today's video, I'm going to show you how to make chum oat balls. The ingredients for our OAT chum balls: we need our 5-gallon bucket, a block of frozen chum, our oatmeal. This is basically a bulk bag of the steamed rolled oat groats. You want to get the specific type of oats that will absorb the fluids and kind of bulk up. Alternatively, you can just go to the grocery store and get your standard oatmeal, and that will work fine. I also like to supercharge it because the oats are going to absorb the fluids and kind of puff up. So I want to get those as flavorful as possible. So I also add menhaden oil. Menhaden is basically the fish that our chum is made out of. It's just ground up menhaden. So by adding just the menhaden oil, that'll supercharge our oats and make our ball even more flavorful and add more scent. All right, gonna hit the old bait freezer, grab a block of chum, and drop it in the old box here. And there we go, all ready. We let our chum block defrost overnight, so about 8 hours. It'll take generally from 8 to 10 hours if you don't go through and shove off all the defrosted part to eliminate the kind of insulated meat blanket that as it defrosts it creates. So all this parts here are defrosted, but our center core part inside there is still frozen, so it's going to take a little bit longer. But if I remove that meat jacket there, it'll defrost rather quickly. So we're going to give this another hour or so, and then it should be ready to start mixing our mix. If you're finding the Chumming 101 series helpful and want to support the channel, check out my tackle shop at www.allaboutthebait.com, where I have all of your chumming accessories, starting with the 1/4-inch chum bag. We've got the 1/2-inch mesh. We've got the 3/4-inch mesh bag. Remember, chum is ground at 5/8 of an inch, so you need to have at least a 3/4-inch mesh in order for it to flow correctly. From there, we go to the 1-inch mesh in a small bag, 1-inch mesh in a large bag, and the 1 1/4 inch mesh, which also can be used to re-net your lobster bully net. Now these larger size meshes are direct replacements for your chum rings. So if you have a chum ring where it's ripped, torn, you could just buy the mesh size that you need and just re-net it. Otherwise, I sell the chum rings in a 3/4 inch mesh, 1 inch mesh, and the 1 1/4 mesh. I also sell galvanized and galvanized coated chum cages, as well as if you chum, they will come apparel. I've got face masks, shirts, and even stickers. So check them out at www.allaboutthebait.com. So let's talk about oats. Got a few different options here, starting with your normal store-bought, old-fashioned, whole grain rolled oats there. Pick up at any grocery store. That's the stuff you make your breakfast out of. Then we've got some more feed style. This is La Crosse Milling Company steam-rolled oat groats there. Gives you the kind of the breakdown. These are 50-pound bags. And then I've got another 50-pound bag. This is Blue Bonnet Feeds steamed rolled oats. And you can see this is kind of a horse feed. So let's take a look at them. Now let's take a look at a few different samples of oats here. This one here is the steam rolled oats. It's the horse feed I got in the 50-pound bag. Originally, when I ordered it online, the picture that they showed was actually just like this floury rolled oat groats. So when I got this, I was kind of surprised. It had been steamed. It's been rolled because all the husks have been cracked, but it still has the husks attached to it. Now I'm still going to try it because I'd like to see if maybe with the holes, this will be a little bit more dense and heavier and still absorb the fluids and might be able to make a better chum ball. However, for these, I'm looking to use them both for chum balls as well as for yellowtail slop. So my preference was to get this more floury type. The second one here is a store-bought version, so it's going to be much cleaner, but it is food grade, so you are paying for that, so it's going to be quite a bit more expensive. I think on sale, I bought a 3-pound box for around $4, but that was prior to this grain shortage, so things got more expensive. I think they're like $5 now for 3 pounds. I was actually buying these at the dollar store for $1 per pound, but can't find those anymore. So, but it is a food grade, but you can find them a lot easier. This one here is the steam-rolled oat groats that I bought from an actual tackle shop, my chum place just down the street at Smith's Auto. 50-pound bag, and this is definitely the one that you want, one of these two, these floury kind of open non-hold versions. These will absorb that liquid really well and they'll become sticky and become a good binding agent. So those are the 3 kinds that I've got, and what you're kind of looking for are these, but I'll let you know what I find out with this husk ones. Alright, I've been letting this thaw for about 10 hours now. It looks pretty good. There's no hard spots, no frozen bits. So let's go ahead and start making our oat chum balls. Like the sandball mix, I'm just going to start dumping some in there, get a rough estimate so I can let you guys know kind of on average how much. But again, what it comes down to is the end consistency is the most important part. But I'm going to start by dumping about 10 cups. Alright, so let me start mixing this. Alright, so we can do kind of our bounce test. Just get a portion of it, bounce it around, and you want it to form a ball, not be sticky to your hand, but yet not fall apart. So we're pretty good there. It might be a little bit on the dry side. You can see that it's cracking, it's not sticking. But there's 2 things that are going to happen. One is that the oats are going to absorb more of the liquid, but I'm going to offset that by having this a little bit drier right now because I'm going to add more of the menhaden oil out of my can. And what that's going to do is add more liquid, but it's also going to allow these oats to absorb more liquid, making it stickier. And then these oats are going to be real flavorful, have scent, the oils from that menhaden oil. And then they're going to be an actual edible piece of this chum, versus the sand balls where the sand is not edible, only the chum is. So in this mixture, everything is going to be a viable food source. So that's why I consider it a better option. And like I said before, anytime you're under 40 feet and shallower, or if you are doing fishing off the bridges, or if you're shore fishing, this oat mix is the way to go. It'll also make your chum last longer because it bulks it up. But you can see that chum ball is nice there. Not as heavy, but not far off. But yeah, so I'm going to let this sit for a little while, let those liquids and those oats kind of absorb it, get a little fattened, and add some menhaden oil to it. Next, we're going to add our menhaden oil in there. I'm going to do probably roughly about a cup. And then I'm going to add some more oats to it because it's going to be a little bit too wet. So let's pour some of this in there. All that extra scent and oils are going to kind of compensate for that dry oats that I added. And I'm just going to let that absorb in there. Give it a bit of a mix so it gets down and around. And those are going to make some nice flavorful oats. So I'm going to give this about a half an hour just to absorb. And then we'll test it, and then I'll make some adjustments, either add more oats, I could add water, I could add more menhaden oil just to get the right consistency, and then we'll be good to go. Alright, let's give it the old bouncy test here. Knock some of this off. See if it holds together. Yep. Not falling apart, it's not dripping through my hands. Am I keeping my hands clean? So I think we're good to go. So now let me show you one of the pro tips here on how to use these chum balls. Alright, once you form one of the chum balls, go ahead and flatten it down, pancake it a little bit, form a little bit of a well in the center. Take your All About the Bait yellowtail snapper jig with your bait of choice. Run it in the center there and basically cover it up. You're just gift wrapping that bait there to hide it in the center of this chum ball. Give it a compact there. Take the line, run it around the chum ball a few times. What that's going to do is prevent that ball from getting cracked open if any tension is put on this line. So if there's any tension put on now, it's going to kind of just flex on the line that's wrapped around it and still keep that ball condensed until you can fix the issue and keep feeding that line. So the two strategies you want to do is just have one person do the ball for you and somebody on the reel, so you have zero tension on the line. Have them ease it over into the water, let it go. As it falls down, the other person's feeding line. You could do one of two things. One, you can wait for it to get all the way down to the bottom, or until it gets busted up and you get a bite, because a fish will be attacking anything around it, and that bait with your hook in it will be right in the middle of that chum cloud. The second option is allowing you to target the water depth that you want. Basically, you do the same thing. One person makes the chum ball with the bait and the All About the Bait yellowtail jig in the center of it. Wrap the line, ease it over the side, drop it over, and now let's say you want to target 3/4 of the way down, because the fish aren't on the bottom, they're not in the mid, they're right in that 3/4. You basically feed that line till you estimated get that ball in that correct depth. Then you close the bail, give your rod a quick little jerk. It's going to bust open this ball. So it's going to pull this loose. Then it's going to bust open that ball. Okay, and then this is going to kind of break apart, and then your bait is going to be right in the middle of that chum cloud, and then those fish will attack it, think this is part of it, grab it, and you've got fish on. So that there is another pro tip. Here's another tip for you. If you pre-make your chum mix and either you're not able to use it or you just want to have it done ahead of time, if you make your mix and use one of these ice vending machine bags that people leave at the vending machines because they don't need them. They work perfectly to store these. This is a 5-pound block or 6-pound block of chum with a corresponding chum mix, and you could easily store 3 sections in one of these bags. Throw it in the freezer and you're ready to go. So great little tip there. Alrighty, so that is Chumming 101 number 5, Oat Chum Balls. Now, strategy-wise, beyond being a great option for fishing shallower water and protecting the reef, the Oat Chum Balls are great for if you're shore fishing, fishing off your dock, fishing off of a bridge, and you don't want to deal with the whole chum net, rope, and all that stuff. You could just make your oat chum mix in a bucket, take that with you, and then just bring a spoon or ladle, and then use it as needed. So a lot of times at a little outlet or whatnot, you can just spoon feed some that chum out there, track fish over to where you're at. Great for bait. You could actually make the chum balls, throw them out a bit farther to like a little hole or some area that you want to attract the fish, and then throw your bait into it as well. And same thing on a dock or a bridge, you could just spoon it out as needed, attract that fish and bait, and you're good to go. So great option. I really love the fact that it is 100% edible versus the sand balls where it's just the chum and then you have all that filtered sand which they're not going to want to eat. That oat product just becomes meat by itself because it absorbs all those oils and bloods and liquids, and to a fish will probably taste just like the chum that's dispersing out as well. So great option, great strategy, so definitely check it out. But otherwise, thanks for watching. Hopefully you found it interesting, maybe learned something from it. If you want to support the channel, don't forget, I sell all of your chumming accessories, as well as yellowtail snapper jigs and weighted circle hooks. So anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next video, where it might be another Chumming 101 video, because we still have to go over yellowtail slop. So anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next video. Bye.